Hey guys, it's Coach. I'm going to be talking to you about a deck that I've been working on called Red Velvet Cake today. This deck is extremely powerful, and the reason I want to cover it is because, well, it's kind of picking up steam in the meta, and I want to get it out there so that all of you guys understand why we're building it, why we're playing it, and what actually goes into the deck itself. You can see all the cards over here, and the makeup of the cake itself, pretty much. So, the red deck is called Red Velvet, or Red Velvet Cake if you like. That's what I'm calling it. The key pieces here are basically everything you see on the screen. You can see the icing there being all the blockers holding the nice cake together, and then we got some extra like close combat and battle aces on top, the pilots and the meat of it in the middle. And I wanted to make this video mostly because this deck is very powerful. It existed in GDO1. The only card we really added to the deck was Cubelli and Heyman, and a lot of people are confused and they're kind of stumbling onto this deck by random chance that, oh, Cubelli is a big card, Kshatriya is a big card, Sinanju is a big card. Some people would run only one or two of those, or have some weird mix. We are here to explain. I'm here to explain to you why and how you're supposed to be building a deck and why it worked in GDO1, but you never saw it. And so this is like the breakdown of it, so that everybody who watches this, you guys know that the key elements of the deck are very similar to Wing Zero. Okay, a Wing Gundam deck consists of like the 3 big cards and the blockers, and then cards around that as like unforeseen and stuff. This is the same deck, just plays differently with ping damage and different big cards. So that's why the deck is called what it is, and that's why I'm making this video. Hopefully you guys enjoy it and learn from it, and then make your own variations of this, and don't go down the rabbit hole of playing cards like the early game cards, because Freedom Blockers and Wing Gundam do not play early game cards except for Lifrits and blockers. Besides those cards, they don't play GMs or Zaku's or any of that stuff. We're really trying to go to the late game, and that's where I think people are confused. The deck excels at the later stages of the game, on like turns 8 to 12. We don't want to play till turn 15 or 16 against like blue white, for example, with Epion and Show of Resolves. We don't want to play against the early aggro decks on the first few turns, or try to throw all our cards out and get an early aggression out. We really want to just abuse. We're really strong with blockers, and then we come out swinging with Sinanju, Kshatriya, Cubelli, and we have really good technical cards like Battle Aces, Close Combats, and we abuse the amount of ping damage we can get out of the deck to keep our opponent's card advantage lower than ours. And then we really win because we have so many more cards than they do, and our shields also help us with the burst mechanic to keep it going, and so on. So we're going to pretty much be talking about the key cards here. The main 3 key cards are Sinanju, the king of the deck. He is the best card in the deck in terms of like being our main monster that we want to keep around. A lot of people might think Cubelli is, she's the strongest, but she is a queen. But the queen piece in chess, in any game, is very strong, can do a lot of damage, can win you the game by herself, but the king is the key critical piece. So Sinanju is the real boss monster of the deck, and then Cubelli is there to help either accelerate the game or finish things off, and if she sticks around or not, it's not really important at all. And then Kshatriya is there to clean up house in the mid game and get us into a really strong board state. So those are the key cards. We really want to be building around these key cards, and like I mentioned, just like Wing, once we get these big monsters on the board, we want to be protecting them with our blockers. Okay, so the real building blocks of the deck are our blockers here. We got Striker Packs, Gundam Lifrits, and Launcher Strikes. We can use other blockers if we want. Any blocker you can think of will be fine. If you want to play Ale Strikes, if you want to play, we're playing some Justice Gundams in here for the blocker token and having advantage through that. Any blocker you can think of that you want to fit in here, or how many copies you want to play, you can feel free to. Freedom Gundam's another one. It's a bigger beat stick. Some people try Kira out, but the building block of the deck and what keeps it together and actually work is the blocker portion of it. This is how we survive against aggro. This is how we keep our big units on the board to continuously gain card advantage. Okay, so the key thing of this deck is play the blockers, play the big cards, and just pretend you're playing a wing deck and keep it going, basically. We don't want to play early game cards to try and aggressively kill our opponent. That's where people are going wrong. We really want to just play blockers, get to the late game, and then crush our opponent with card advantage and ping damage that they cannot just leave a unit standing, because one of the powerful things you can do is pretty much have Sinanju and Cubelli on the board at the same time. Sinanju swings, deals 2 damage, Cubelli swings, deals 2 damage. That's a permanent 4 damage, and that's pretty much, if you can get that combo off, which sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't. It's not like you're trying to aim for it, but if it does happen, pretty much your opponent's going to be out of the game. There's nothing that can play, no single unit that's going to survive. If you play a Link unit, it's probably going to also die from, you know, your technical cards in your hand, like Close Combat, Battle Aces, just to provide even more ping damage so they can't go wide on you. So here are the tech cards. There's a few tech cards in here. You can use them, not use them, but there's a lot of technical pieces that I put into the decks and I think are key to look at. And sometimes you run one of them, 2 of them, whatever you want. We'll start with Battle of Aces. The real powerhouse card, you know, it's really, really strong. We also run Close Combats. Close Combat is honestly our Zort in the early game, just to make sure that we can play something on turn 2, take out our opponent's early game aggression, the Zakutus and everything else, Shard Zakutus. Battle Aces is a very, very strong card, and the way that it works in our deck is if they swing at us with, let's say, a Ale Strike. They attack us with Ale Strike, we can block with the Lifrith, dealing 2 damage to the Ale Strike, and then we can Battle Aces for 5 total. So all of a sudden, Battle Aces becomes a insta-kill if something already has damage on it, and we can count to the number of, you know, requirement of their HP. So once we match it with our 1 damage pings, 2 damage pings, and so on, we just start taking cards off of the board, almost acts as like a Fatal Strike in that case. Its combos basically super, super well with Sinanju, Kshatriya, and all of the other ping that we have. It's also extremely powerful from our shield area as a burst effect. We can just burst out, deal 2 damage, and it cleans up the aggressiveness of aggro decks, and it also sticks around to kill those level 5 Ale Strikes. It can finish off Freedoms, anything that's got a little bit too much HP. This is a key to deal with it. And then Close Combat, our early game burst, same concept. Gyaradoga and Gyarazzulu are 2 cards that are very technical. You don't have to run these, but we are running them. They obviously combo with Full Frontal, but the main reason we're running these is just to have extra ping damage to finish things off when we could not otherwise. They're also units, and having units on the board is important. They can also swing into something big, and they might die from the attack, but they provide us damage so that we can continue to do our add up the numbers with Battle Aces, Close Combat, Sinanju, Kshatriya, Cubellis, finish off their bigger units, and we don't have to sacrifice our big units into their big units. That's essentially the key plan here and how we build up large card advantage over our opponent. Gyaradoga is there in the mirror match. Honestly, this when the mirror match comes up a lot more. You play him, and then you just start pinging their Lifriths. Opponent does not want to swing with the Lifrith, so you can just ping it for 1. That activates Battle of Aces. You can ping it again next turn, and you can set up some good pings and use his 1-cost resource instead of playing cards. Again, build up that card advantage. It is very slow, it is very awkward, but the secondary use of this card is your opponent plays an Ale Strike, doesn't link it. If we attack with Gyaradoga, they don't want to block with Ale Strike. We're trading a 4-2, like, you know, mediocre card to their Ale Strike blocker, and that's where I like this card. Even if it's a Lifrith or a Launcher Strike, this guy just can run through something, or again, you can swing it into something that has more HP, deal a lot of damage to them, and then finish them off with one of your other pings. Now, Justice Gundam is one of our big cards that a lot of people are not running. This card is, like, you know, kind of undervalued in GDO 1, and even in GDO 2 it's kind of undervalued how powerful this card is. This card is pretty much a Show of Resolve, but a unit. You play Justice Gundam and you get a +1, so your opponent thinks you have 1 card in your hand or 2 cards. You could play double Justice Gundams on turn 10, you could play 1 Justice Gundam, all of a sudden you play a card, get another card for free. So getting a 2-for-1 in this game is very powerful, and card advantage is powerful, and this provides an extra blocker in that late game. So this is, again, just you want to play something big and a blocker to keep your Sinanju and stuff alive. This is very, very strong for that. People are going to have a hard time getting around Justice and the blocker, and then again, it deals 5 damage, can be really good at, you know, swinging, taking out something big. If they play an Ale Strike, they don't want to block, because then Justice Gundam would take him out. So Justice Gundam is there to really, really overthrow our opponent. When the game is getting close, we have, like, our cards getting low, we have the card advantage through Justice Gundam. Pretty much a Show of Resolve, but on a unit. So those are the key cards right there. Now, this is a beginner version of the deck that I feel like is pretty good. And a lot of people, if you're playing this, you should start with this deck. And it's pretty much got a little bit of everything that you could want. You can see the Justice Guns in there too. You got Overflowings in there to really, cycle your cards if you like. And the package is pretty clear. Everything's gonna do its job, and you get used to the deck. And there's a little bit of technical cards like Unforeseen and Battle Aces in there. We're only running so many pilots, and you can get used to the deck. Okay, and then how you want to evolve this version is up to you and other people. There's some other ones that have won tournaments that play like Max Nanju, Max Kshatriya, Max Cubelli. There's things that don't play any Overflowings. People can swap out the bases to the 5-cost ones that ping for 1. You can take out Unforeseens, take out Battle Aces, put in more blockers if you want to go even bigger. You can add more Justice Gundams or even add those Freedoms in. The key thing to understand though is we are going to the late game. Please go to the late game and win with your deck with card advantage and by pinging your opponent's units off the board, calculating it, and using the blockers to deal damage to your opponent so that either on your turn or in the action step you can finish them off at the end of your opponent's turn without them realizing it, and all of a sudden they're in trouble. Okay, and then don't worry about, oh, I'm going to be like running out of cards or something. You're not going to run out of cards as long as you play the deck efficiently and follow some fundamentals. And then Justice Gundam comes in, gets you an extra unit, and Kshatriya and Cubelli start pinging things off, and you build up value there. It's pretty much like playing Red Blue Pepsi Ping, but with the Red Velvet deck, you're doing it just a little bit later. Like 1 or 2 turns later, it really comes together, and you're just trying to survive to that point with the blockers. And blockers innately have higher HP, so they can kind of trade 2-for-1s oftentimes, especially once you start adding in the ping damage we can do. So this is a beginner deck. I suggest you guys start here. Do not take this deck and then turn it into an aggro deck. This is not an aggro deck. Please get that out of your heads. Play it like a wing deck. You're going to the late game and you're trying to win. If you think it's scary to play against a Epion deck where they have show of resolves and card advantage, you can still beat them because just like Wing can crush them because it's more powerful before Epion and show of resolves get to like plus infinite value, you can beat them before that happens and keep up with their show of resolves with Justice Gundams and pinging their blockers off the table. This is a deck that I made, and it's got a little bit too much spice in it. It's kind of all over the place. It's really, really good, and actually people prefer this version over the previous version, but this is more advanced. To play this, we're still kind of experimenting with how many cards we want of everything, and you can see we got an aerial rebuild in there. We got 4 Justice Gundams. I think 4 Justice Gundams is really, really strong. If you don't like 4, you can always swap that out for other blockers in the early game, mid game, whatever place you think is weak for you personally, or add in another Sinanju, another Cubelli, another pilot, so on. This is my favorite version at the moment. That Gera Dula Doga heavy arm type is actually really, really strong, especially in the mirror match or against other blocker types. You can get a lot of value out of it because you don't use up all your resources, or maybe you don't need to because your opponent's not going to attack with their Lifrith because you have your own, and then you can just start pinging it slowly, and over 2 turns kill a 2/2, kill a blocker, kill a Zowort if your opponent, well, not a Zowort, but something else that your opponent plays that maybe doesn't want to attack, or it forces them to use their card. You can block or not block, take a hit to the shields, activate Battle Aces, close combat. Losing HP with this deck, and like my Wing Burst deck as well, is a resource you need to manage and abuse so you can get Striker Packs, Unforeseen Incidents, Battle Aces, and Pilots into your hand, so you basically get even more card advantage. If you were to take 4 hits in the face with this deck, all of a sudden you could hit let's say we hit a Striker Pack that's a free unit, and we can hit a Battle Aces dealing 2 damage to something else, maybe killing a GM. That is literally, we just got to play 2 cards for free because we used our HP or our shield area as a resource to impact the board and play more cards than our opponent is going to over the course of the game. So I like to say that this deck starts out with a +5, honestly, because we're going to have a 5 card advantage over our opponent until they do something like play Show of Resolve to counteract that, or some other like Justice Gundam and things. So really have a +5 going to any matchup until they also start getting pluses. On top of this, the matchups, Justice Gundam helps into like almost all matchups, but people might be scared about Wing. This deck crushes Wing. Okay, when I played my Wing in GDO 1 before Cubelli came out, I lost 14 games in a row to this archetype. Okay, so the Red Velvet deck, I lost 14 games in a row. And then even now I lose like almost always. When I play a standard green-white blocker wing, it just gets blown out because Wing Gundam has one big clear weakness. It has no card draw in terms of like pluses, and then it doesn't have any units that bring out other units. The only plus in the Wing deck is Death Scythe, and if it swings and it can kill something without taking any damage, it takes like a linked unit off the board. But in our case, we have multiple of that. We have Justice Gundams, Unforeseen's help, obviously not against Death Scythe, but other things. And then Battle Aces and our ping damage just build up a lot of value over the over the course of the game, and that's why I like this quite a bit. So that's pretty much like I don't want to talk about matchups too much. You kind of can play late game and go about your way. It's really really important that you continue to do that, and you basically take this deck out for a spin and just understand the basic thing of blockers are key. We are not an aggro deck. We are a defensive deck. It is very very important. And you guys can test it out, start winning your games, and then make slight adjustments as long as you understand that, again, this is like the fourth time I'm saying it, blockers, late game. Okay, we are going to the late game, and mulliganing into a close combat for your opening hand is good. So it basically pretend it's a Zord, and then making sure you can use Unforeseen at the right moments, and mathing out the blocker math plus the ping math together so you guys can do clear units off the board, and then don't worry about being too aggressive. You just need to outlive your opponent, and your opponent will by default lose the game because they'll run out of cards before you do, especially if they start playing cards while you've already established a Kshatriya, Sinanju, or Cubelli. You can just start pinging them off the board before your opponent gets to attack since they don't have links. They want to go ahead and play like a Launcher Strike or a Justice Gundam late game, and then they play like that. You can go Sinanju, swing at shields, deal 2 damage to the blocker, get rid of it, and then you can also maybe play a close combat Battle Aces from your hand and get rid of the Justice Gundam right there. Or block the Justice Gundam with a Striker pack that you might have had around, or a blocker, and then use a combination of other combat damage to take Justice Gundam off the board. And so now your opponent has to respect how they need to swing into you, and if they don't, they're going to get hit by Battle Aces and get their key units taken off the board. It's essentially trading the link unit for a blocker plus a combat trick. And if you don't have the correct answers, you can just let it hit your shields and see what happens. You might hit a close combat, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, your unit has 2 less HP. It's a lot easier for me to deal with that now from the cards that I have available in my hand, like Cubelli Link, deal 2 more damage, finish off an Ale Strike. Battle Aces, top deck of Battle Aces, deal 3 damage, finish off Ale Strike for free pretty much. So keep that in mind. Hopefully this helps you guys master this deck and get an idea of how it's supposed to be built and what the aim is to go late game. And that 6 HP base right there, I just want to comment real quick. It is very important because you're going to survive longer. The reason why Wing doesn't play other bases with 5 HP is 5 HP base just dies immediately. So we're really trying to get to the late game and survive, because we'll win. If we put 5 HP bases in our deck, you'll get more pingage out of it if you use the ping bases. But at the same time, you're going to be weaker to super aggressive decks or Wing Gundams breaching for 5.